Hello, it's Friday 30th of July. My name is William Jackson. I'm the Chief Emerging Markets Economist at Capital Economics, and this is your Week in Review. This week, we published our flagship Global Economic Outlook, in which we set out our key views for the global economy. The main message is that the big gains for the global recovery from economic reopening have now happened, but most economies should continue to grow at a very healthy pace. And in the major DMs, interest rate hikes remain a long way off. While we've been correct so far in forecasting generally strong V-shaped recoveries, there are also a few risks to the outlook that are important to flag. Some of these are more of a threat than others. One of these is the spread of the highly contagious Delta variant of COVID-19. We see this as a much bigger risk for emerging economies than for developed economies because of the very low rates of vaccinations in many EMs. We're currently seeing big outbreaks of the Delta variant in parts of Southeast Asia, which is hitting their economies hard, and many others could be in a similar situation. Another threat to the outlook is slower growth in China. The economy is losing momentum. It's coming down to earth after a very strong recovery. In terms of what that means for other countries, we see it as a big headwind for industrial metals producers like South Africa and Brazil, but it shouldn't derail recoveries in many of the major economies. We'll be going into this in much more depth in a webinar next week, where we'll be talking about the macroeconomic and financial market implications. And you can also find more details about the impact of China's slowdown and the risks from the Delta variant for emerging markets in our Emerging Markets Economic Outlook, which we also published this week. I wanted to end by highlighting some of our research on Tunisia. It made the headlines at the start of this week amidst political turmoil, and there are lots of questions about what it means for the country and for the legacy of the Arab Spring. From an economic standpoint, it's reaffirmed our view that the sovereign is likely to be in a position where it has to restructure its debts. And there's a broader point here, which is that, at least in parts of the emerging world, the economic hit from the pandemic and public concerns about policymakers' response could lead to quite dramatic political shifts. And this has been a common theme through Latin America over the course of this year. There are lots of angles to it, but it does seem that growing public debt concerns are a common strand. And we're going to be writing much more on this over the coming weeks. Now, you can read all of this research and more on our website, so please do. All that remains to be said is have a nice weekend, and thank you for listening.